All right. Good morning. Good morning for me. I don't know what time it is where you are. So, the question I wrote down before I went to bed last night that I wanted to explore together today is, what does it mean to be living on the edge, to find the edges of our abilities? How do we know when we're at an edge? I have found that the best of life, the best of the work that I'm in, the best of the relationships that I'm in, the best of anything I'm doing with my time, it always seems to happen when I'm at an edge where I'm doing something that is different and distinct from anything I've ever done before. And all that needs to be the case for that to be true is there's just one aspect of it that is new, that is unfamiliar, that is unknown, where I can't personally say, this is what's going to happen next, or I'll do this and this will be the result. That's what I mean by being in an edge. I think a lot of us feel pushed to the edge. We feel pushed to our limits. We feel pushed far beyond our limits in a lot of cases because of the forces that are acting on us from the world, whether that's our employers, whether that's children or people that we're responsible for taking care of, whether that's relationships, friends, family, neighbors, just the pressures of living collectively. Like, living together is hard. Living in harmony with other people is, it's the state of our world right now. It's one of the biggest challenges. We're going through a combination of crises. There's a social isolation crisis happening that is touching a lot of people. I think it's touching everyone. It's challenging to connect for a lot of people. This is probably one of the most common things I'm hearing in my social circles, even amongst people I'm connected with. It's sort of like, how is this supposed to work? How are we supposed to stay connected to one another? Why is so much of life about being alone? Or why is so many of the challenges that we're facing, challenges we're facing alone? And then globally, if you scale all the way out and don't think too much about, well, maybe touching your personal lives, but if you pull all the way out, like, that's the crisis that our planet is in right now. We've got how many wars going on around the world? We've got how many issues that require some degree of global coordination in order for us to navigate sustainably and safely through them, whether it's climate change or artificial intelligence and all the other new technologies that we don't really know the effect of, that are developing and evolving faster than we can keep track of, let alone coordinate any kind of means of regulating those technologies for safety so they don't harm us, our kids, and future generations. And I think a lot of people have just given up on that. So there's, this context of, like, it's challenging to live well together. There's this context of, like, a lot of us are feeling pressured in our personal lives where we don't know how we're going to make ends meet. And at the same time, I think a lot of us are, there's kind of two approaches that we can take to it. On the one hand, there's the approach of, well, I'm already being pushed to my limits, so why on earth would I look to find my edges? Why on earth would I ask for more challenges? Why on earth would I, how could now be the time that I'm to develop into a better version, the higher vibration version of myself? Isn't it obvious that, it's a bad time? And then the other perspective is sort of like, well, which kind of pain do you want? Do you want the kind of pain that the world imposes on you? Or do you want to look at your future and say, ask yourself where you want to be a year from now, a month from now, 10 years from now, and then find the edges that will take you to there. I'll share just my own example as a way, not as a way of sort of like bragging about where it is that I feel I'm headed or talking about my ambitions for any reason other than example. So I have a vision in my head of what I want to do with my life. It involves playing music. It involves supporting people through work like this. It involves, building this YouTube channel into something that is a sustainable source of income and hopefully a career all on its own, something enough to keep me, not just keep me going, but like realize and fulfill my purpose, to give me the resources to be able to support my family and invest in causes that I care about, to give me the resources that I need to continue investing in the things that I want to grow. That's part of my ambition. That's my ambition for doing this. And in order to do that, I need to create something valuable for other people. And in order to do that, I need to, there's all kinds of things that then become, oh, it's going to have this. Oh, it's going to have this. Oh, I should be the kind of person that can do this, and this. Something that came up for me as I was thinking of recording this video was, well, I want to be able to do this kind of video, not just live to air, which is essentially what I've been doing with the last few videos, but like live. I want to be able to free talk and share thoughts on a question that we're exploring together and look in the comments and ask you questions. And I realized that like, well, that's the next edge. Maybe we should do it this morning. And ultimately, I'm not doing it this morning, but exploring this topic is an edge. A few years ago, when I moved back, I was living on the South Shore of Nova Scotia for since about 2016, and then I moved back to Halifax in 2021. And when I moved back, one of the things that I was committed to and was part of my vision at that time was playing music publicly, performing. And I haven't done much performance for really anybody other than like friends. Like if I'm on a retreat or if I was traveling and I had my guitar, the people I was with got to hear me play guitar because I had it. And I don't go far without my guitar. And they just happened to be with me and they got to hear it, but I hadn't been performing or playing music live really since I was in a band in high school. Long live Jedavana Groove. And when I got back, I realized that not only did I want to play music, but I wanted to sing as part of the musical performance I would eventually do. And so that's an edge. So how did I find my edge? And I was always singing. I've always been a singer at home, but I hadn't taken lessons or formal training or done much singing in front of people. So I did two things that were meant to help me get over that hump. One, I joined a choir, but two, that's kind of obvious, right? I'm not going to elaborate on that. You want to sing better, get around other people that can sing. Well, maybe I will say a little bit about that. There's something about being in the environment about, there was all kinds of hesitation before I went. It was like, well, I'm going to be the only one that doesn't read music. And they're going to hear me sing and they're going to know that I'm a fraud and I'm going to be holding the band or the choir back. And, I had all these kinds of thoughts. And I remember pulling up, like I had sent an email to the organizers asking if I could join because they were looking for low voices and I have a low voice. And so they were expecting me to show up at one of these rehearsals. And I remember pulling up my car and just like sitting in it and being like, I could drive away. I could just drive away right now and I'll never know who I am. But I knew that if I drove away, then that's like, well, bailing on these people that are expecting you. So that's your first impression. And there's something about being on that edge that's like, it's it feels like you should go home. It feels like you should get back in your shell. I posted an Instagram story about this a couple weeks ago, months ago, and I was surprised at how much feedback I got from people on that story. I just shared how anytime I get close to pushing publish on something or sharing something or like doing anything that puts myself out there, there's this like feeling throughout my body that just it's crippling. And I want to say that it's kind of fake, that it's kind of like it's protective. It's meant to protect who you were yesterday. It's not meant to protect the version of you that you're becoming. It's meant to protect who you were yesterday. It's not meant to serve the person that you're becoming. And so I'm sitting in my car outside of the church where the choir rehearses, and just like, okay, I'm going to push through that feeling. I'm going to get through. And of course, as soon as I'm in the door, as soon as I meet somebody that recognizes my name from the email, it's like, I feel fine. It's fine. The whole time, it's like this wonderful experience of like singing with like 70 other voices. And haven't done that since like elementary school. Amazing experience. And it's been 2 years of constant, continuous learning about the human voice in that context. And it's been a super, super supportive environment. The other edge that I explored when I got back to the city and knew that singing in public was something that I wanted to do was I just started looking for contexts in which I could not necessarily perform in front of a group of people, but like shake the, realizing this is kind of a fuzzy look. And I've got a few minutes before I got to bounce. So I started just looking for other contexts where it's like, could I start singing right now and work on the part of me that doesn't want to sing in public? So not like stage opportunities, but the two that come to mind are, I've done a lot of delivery work in the last year, and I've spent a lot of time at the YMCA. So I love singing in the shower. So I just made a point of it. It's like, well, when I'm getting a shower at the YMCA, I decided I'm not gonna hold back. I'm gonna sing in the shower, and it's not the same. It's definitely an edge. I can feel myself a little more constricted, but in that environment, it's like, well, anybody could hear me, and I explored that edge. One thing I will say about that is probably the worst thing that could have happened as a result of singing in the shower at the Y did happen. I'm singing one day and I'm actually doing vocal exercises in the shower, which like in hindsight is kind of annoying. Like listening to somebody exercise their voice and warm up their voice is, I've heard feedback from people. It's not, they'd rather you sing a song. But I'm doing that in the shower, and then, there's shower stalls. It's not like an open shower. So that might be an edge that I wouldn't necessarily explore. And I'm doing my exercises, and then somebody walks by and just boom, boom on the door. And in hindsight, I'm so glad that happened, because it was like, well, that's kind of as bad as it's going to get if you're exploring your edge and someone tells you to stop. And it was fine. It was like, yeah, I got spooked for a minute, and he kept walking. He just wanted to send the signal that he didn't appreciate what I was offering to the locker room. It's fine. It's the only time it's ever happened. Maybe other people have thought, I wish that guy would stop singing. Nobody said anything. And lots of people sing in the shower. I want to be part of that club. The other context I explored it in was I do delivery work, and I end up walking through a lot of apartment buildings and lobbies and frankly places with great acoustics. And I wanted to use that both as an edge and as a way of learning about like, well, I'm never going to learn, like there's something the body, the ear, your voice will learn about how to sing in a variety of different environments if you're always walking through lobbies and atriums. And geez, if you don't sing, That's what a missed opportunity. And that's one that I still have a bit of an edge about, because like I'm in somebody's home, or many people's home, or at least the entryway to their home, and I'm singing, but have had very few experiences where it wasn't just greeted with a smile. And this is a bit of an extension too from, if you watch my video on free writing, you might find that there's sort of like a bit of a connection here, at least in terms of the edges that I'm interested in exploring. So I'll talk a bit about kind of like the edge of expression, because I think I think all of us are here to create. This is part of my worldview that I'm finding is shared with a lot of others that I'm connecting with at the moment. But I think we come into this existence in the image of our creator, and are here in order to be creative, in order to be expressive people. I don't think our purpose here, or the intent behind our creation, is particularly moralistic, which is where I spent probably most of my 20s and early adult life thinking. But I think the intent for us in this life is to be creative, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about publishing on a platform like YouTube. And one of the reasons why I've spent so much time in the last 3 years really working on removing the limitations to the expression of the voice that comes through me, of my own voice. And I'm almost hesitant to call it my voice, because it's like, it's just the voice that was here. It's not that I'm putting too much premeditation into how I'm going to express these words. Sometimes I'll get stuck and I'll have to look for a word for a minute, but for the most part, there's just a sense of, this is what I'm here to say today. This is what I'm here to talk about today. And I just trust that at some point, someone will happen upon this video and it's what they were looking to hear that day, or it's helpful for navigating whatever it is that they're exploring. But ultimately, I think you can't go wrong if you just look internally and ask yourself, what would make it easier for what's inside of me to come out of me? Like, what could I do to let go a little bit of whatever it is that I'm holding on to? And free writing is so helpful for that, because it's, for the most part, a private experience. It's something that you can use to just let go of the thoughts in your head and like give them a place. Like you're putting them somewhere. I think that would be very validating for a thought to experience. It's very validating when a friend comes to you, or a colleague comes to you, and they say, hey, I have something to share with you. And in receiving it, you sort of say, well, here's where I'm going to put that. You're placing it for them. And I think the same thing is true for the thoughts that we've made of situations, and free writing is exceptional for that. So I think there's like exercises we can do that are sort of like clearing exercises that help us. I use the reference of like cleaning out the pipes in the free writing video. Like if you can flush out the pipes of all the junk that's typically floating around I'm going to switch back and forth between the metaphors, but like all the stuff that's like gunked up inside of you that hasn't been released. If you can release a lot of that stuff as you're being creative, as you're learning to be creative, as you're learning to create and express what's in you, you realize it's like there's not actual work in being creative. It's just time and attention. The work is giving it time and attention, and then something great comes out. That's probably the biggest learning that I found from consciously moving towards the edges that stand between me and the dreams I have, the visions I have for the life that I want to live, is that initially, like, the edge feels like, oh, I've got to develop this great ability. Like, initially the edge feels like, I've got to learn all of the vocal techniques, or I've got to learn like all of the names of all of the chords and learn to play them in all of the different keys. And the reality is when you're focused on your edges, you learn the song that you want to learn. And if there's 5 chords in that song, and if there's, a few vocal maneuvers or tricks that you haven't done before, it's like, that's when you learn them. But like, your edges aren't total mastery. Your edges are the path towards mastery. I have a friend who teaches voice, and my friend Lucas, and he made the comment to me that most of his students are challenged by the fact that their taste exceeds their ability. So, and I heard that and I was like, well, my taste totally exceeds my ability. That's a problem I have. I think it's probably a challenge that we all have, is that the music we hear in our heads, or the vision we have for the community we want to live in, or how we think things should be, just exceed either our individual or our collective abilities right now. And operating without recognizing that there's a distinction between those things is not helpful, in some cases dangerous, probably harmless if you're just a musician, not just a musician, but harmless in the sense of like, you're not going to hurt anybody, but you might hurt your career or your ambitions. But if you can recognize the distinction between like taste and ability, and recognize that like your ability is something that other people would be like very happy to experience and receive, that's been a huge unblocker for me, that like, okay, my taste exceeds my ability, but my ability may exceed your tastes in the areas that I could help you. Like, you want something. I know I can offer something, and like, because I've been at it for a while, and because you've been at whatever your thing is for a while, you know where you're going to go next. You know where the edge of your ability will take you when you keep pushing it. But the people that you're here to serve, the people that want what you have, the people who see you and are like, wow, that guy could be really helpful on my path, they're satisfied with exactly what you are right now. Last thought I will share is, when I was living on the South Shore, I learned a little bit about the beaver. And I learned that when beavers hear running water, they always instinctively just work on their dams. They work on building their dams. It's just part of the evolutionary mechanism that if water was running, the smartest, safest thing for them to do for their survival was to continue to build their dam. And I think for human creatives, there is this thing inside of us that we often misinterpret, this sense of desire. And in a lot of the Eastern religions, they're kind of encouraging of, let go of all of your desires. But I think there's a difference between letting go of my desire to be more masterful at playing the guitar or at singing or doing these kind of videos, and using desire as a guide. So if I'm attached to desire and I'm like, oh, nothing will be good until I get this thing, that's a very unhealthy place to be. And I think that's what wisdom traditions have tried to guide us away from, is like, no, don't get attached to desire. But it's also been my experience that like there's a helpful compass there. And if I can learn to treat this part of me that wants, and really sort of connect with it more holistically, if it's just in my head, I typically don't trust it. But if I feel it in my heart and gut, and it's something that I try to move towards. So if I can connect with the part of me that desires in a really authentic way, and it's like, yeah, I want to be able to play the guitar the way I play it and get better at it. And I want to be able to sing at the same time. There's a really helpful compass in there for me that I can follow, that I can move towards. And if I'm just kind of like light about being attached to it, then I think that combination of things can be really helpful. I don't think humans can ever lose desire. I don't think we can lose that instinct in ourselves where it's like we show up somewhere and there's not part of us that wants more. It's the belief that things will be better when we get more, that the sense of not enoughness will go away when we get more, that the sense of I don't belong yet will go away when we get more. It's like that's also something that we have to learn to live with. And we have to learn that nothing out there is ever going to make us lose that sense. Maybe it's not that we have to learn to live with it, but it seems to me that like it's something that just doesn't get satisfied. It's far more related to what's happening inside of us than what's happening out there. So I will leave you with the question, like, what are the edges? A challenge. I'll leave you with the challenge. What are the edges that you are consciously choosing? What is the pain that you're choosing as the world seems to ask more and more of you? What are the edges that you want to explore? What edges are you excited to explore? And if you feel like sharing them, you can share them in the comments. 27 minutes. That's insane.